The Club Championship Show on OTB Sports in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. # the toughest.
You are very welcome along to this week's edition of the Club Championship Show here on OTB Sports, which is brought to you by AIB. A packed show coming up over the next 40 minutes or so. It is the final, probably most neutrals wanted to come from last weekend. Ballygunner against Ballyhale in a couple of weeks' time at Croke Park, as Ballyhale Shamrocks will look to become the first club ever to lift the Tommy Moore for a third successive time. It's after their dramatic win against St Thomas's of Galway. 2 goals and 15 points to 20 points, including that late free from TJ Reid, the ultimate in sporting drama at Semple Stadium on Sunday. We'll be talking to Colin Fennelly, the Ballyhale manager, in a few moments' time. The other semi-final was a little bit more straightforward. Ballygunner of Waterford into their first ever AIB All-Ireland Club Hurling final, overcoming a dogged Slough-Neil side in the end by 2 goals and 19 points to 1 goal and 17. We'll also be looking forward to this weekend's Football Championship semi-finals, the race down to 4 for the All-Ireland football, and we will look forward to those games with Fintan O'Toole of the 42.ie and also my co-host for this week as well, Tommy Rooney, who's here alongside me now. Tommy, how are you getting on?
Hey Will, how are you doing?
It's hard to kind of top what happened on Sunday, just in a general sense from a sporting day. The 2 NFL playoffs in the divisional round, probably 2 of the best matches I've ever seen. Overtime drama, more last gasp kicks in that one, and it was last gasp TJ Reid, who again, I would say for the second time this year, probably rescued the reigning All-Ireland champions when it looked like they were about to surrender their title.
There's a lot of talk about GOATs at the weekend, wasn't there, between TJ and Tom Brady nearly initiating a comeback in the NFL. Like, we spoke to Verney about it last week, Michael Verney, and we asked how many lives do Ballyhale get? How, like, we were talking about the arc of great teams and how can you tell if a team is on the wane. And I think the conclusion we came to last week that Ballyhale have rode out the rough patch and they're on the right form now, and they're going to march on to the All-Ireland final if they can get by or continue what they're doing. And St Thomas's were the better team. We're going to talk to Colin Fennelly now. St Thomas's were the better team for 63 minutes, but that just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And Cooney's free goes over the bar, maybe forces Ballyhale's hand a little bit. Burke fouls Reid, and what a free. What a goal. Like, I know we're going to talk to Colin about his role in the goal itself.
He had a key role in it, Tommy, let's be fair. Absolutely. Because he gets right in the eye line, which causes the goalkeeper, who is, I think, keen to charge the ball anyway rather than standing on his line, to have to come around Colin Fennelly. Like, the thing I will never understand is why a couple of St Thomas backs didn't come out and just push Fennelly out of the way so that he's not in the eye line of the goalkeeper. Because the one thing you want in that circumstance is for the goalkeeper to have a clean line of sight. And then, look, the free has to be perfect. That is a bullet from TJ Reid. Not just hit hard, but hit like an arrow as well with the trajectory which it hits the net. I don't actually know how the TG Car camera managed to keep it in shot, given the speed that the shot came at.
We'll ask Colin about it now, but like, you watch that Reid goal over and over, and there's the whole madness of, oh my God, he's actually done it. And next thing, Shane Keegan puts up a clip, from the stand, and it's the most perfect angles. It's amazing how sometimes fan footage from a particular vantage point can be sometimes better than all the TV cameras that are there. But from that angle of Shane Keegan's shot, that was the first time I noticed Colin Fennelly and what he had done. And we'll speak to Colin about it. But I think the reason the St Thomas's lads didn't horse him out of the way was how well he timed it. Because he's not in the goalkeeper's eye line, and just as TJ lifts the ball, he steps across. And look, you see it happen in the Premier League all the time, or in football, when there's a free kick being taken. I remember Fred doing it once in a soccer game, and he didn't make any sense what he was doing. He tried to stand in the keeper's eye line. Anderson used to do it quite well for United, and it was brilliant what Fennelly did. And you're right, the keeper tried to charge it down, and maybe if he had stood his ground, who knows? But like, while you feel for St Thomas's, it's just incredible watching a team like Ballyhale do that.
But Colin Fennelly's with us now. Colin, when all the chaos is happening around that free and TJ's getting ready to set it down, you're putting yourself into a position whereby you're a nuisance in front of the goal. How conscious are you of trying to make it difficult for the goalkeeper and the backs on the line?
Just before that, I did see Joey Cuddy and Adrian kind of just move out of the way, so that just kind of opened up a path. I wasn't actually too sure was TJ going to top spin it, because he actually done one similar enough during the year. I think it was against Bennettsbridge, and he top spinned it in kind of nearly top corner. So I suppose I just walked straight across, put out my arms, body as big as possible, and it was just a nuisance really, I suppose, for St. Thomas, and just the fact that it was probably last second. There was very little that they could actually do. So, people would say the keeper should have stayed in the line, but then he couldn't see anything. He needs to see the ball, and it all just happened so quickly. And TJ's perfection, I suppose, and just his strength, his experience, and it was a bullet. I don't actually remember seeing it going past me. All I seen was net rattle, so I can't imagine what it was like for the Thomas players as well, with just bodies in front of them. So it's just extremely awkward. And in those situations, 9 times out of 10, it hits off someone, it saves, it goes over the bar, So it was that bit of luck at the end of the day. But look, TJ Reid has been doing this for years, so just excited at the end. It was just absolutely incredible.
It's the nature of things as well, Colin. Like, people look back and say St. Thomas's should have cleared everyone out of the way. They should have had every man back on the line possible to try and block it, because they knew that this was going to be effectively the last puck of the game. But I guess it's difficult when you're out in the heat of battle in the middle of a game like that, and in their case you can see it all kind of flashing in front of you. It's probably difficult to be organised when they see someone like yourself stepping in the line of the ball. Everyone is probably panicking a little bit towards the end of a game as well. It's easy for us on the sideline maybe to say, this is what St. Thomas should have done, this is what the goalkeeper should have done on the line.
Yeah, exactly. Look, in hindsight, when you look back over the camera and the views and everything else, you can say everything about it, but in those couple of moments, it all happened so quickly. And 2 seconds before that, the keeper and the Thomas lads were set up, and just I think when I walked across, TJ was actually just walking up to the free. So again, it just happened so quickly. You can't fault anyone. It's just one of those moments. And as I said, 9 times out of 10, it probably won't go in, but somehow TJ's able to do it.
You could have ended up blocking it there, Colin, as well. I know you're talking about it.
Yeah. I was ready to move out of the way. I didn't actually think it that hard. I don't think I would have been able to get out of the way if he hit straight at me.
Yeah. You probably heard what TJ was saying as well about dipping the hurl into a bit of water the night before you went to Semple Stadium as well. Now, I don't know how dry the hurls are at the moment given the weather conditions, but it proved to be a very clever decision. I mean, the ball flies off the boss for the penalty and obviously flew for that free as well. Is that something that you've ever done before, Colin, wetting the hurl the night before the game?
No, my hurl sits in the boot of the car, so it's always with me when I go training. That's as close as that, and I do it. No, look, TJ's a gas man. It's a great hurl at the moment, but if I had to miss a penalty, the hurl would probably be in the fire. So, he has all his own little tricks and everything else, but he looks a lot more into the detail now than what I do. So he does. I'm more of a nuisance where he's more technical, I suppose.
We were talking about you getting out of situations, and sticky situations have happened this year. If we take you back to December, even in Tullamore, St. Rynagh's are leading 63 minutes on the clock. It's that one last play where the ball gets dropped in and Cody eventually puts the ball into net. You send it to extra time, win the game. In the case of this St. Thomas game, they never really got a huge meaningful lead, but as Tommy mentioned, they were on top for most of the game. Then you win the penalty, TJ puts it in, TJ gets the free, you win the game at the end. At some stage, do you start to make your own luck, or has this been a lucky year so far that you got out of jail in those 2 games?
Yeah, no, look, we certainly got out of jail. It's hard to explain, and to be honest, I put it down to one thing, is just probably experience. When I say experiences, we've been in these positions before. We played Portum, I think, back in 2010 or 11, and they hammered us off the field, and we were nowhere near them. I think that was the All-Ireland semi-final. And then the following year we came back, and I think we bet them by 7 points, and the 2 teams were no different. And it's just all down to your attitude. And I think both games, Rynagh's and Thomas's, we as bad as we were, we kept ourselves in the game, because it was never more than 4 points that we were down. And 2 pucks of ball and all of a shot, it's a completely different game. And that's exactly what happens between the penalty and the free. It just completely turns the game on its head. And it's just probably that experience that, look, if you keep in touch with a team, there's always a chance. And in both games, we kept ourselves in that game as much as probably Thomas's were well on top of us throughout the game.
There's been an incredible amount of commentary about the foul on you, which wins the penalty, crucial moment within the game. What's your take on it? Because it seems to split people right down the middle. Some people feel that potentially you were charging and then went to the ground and drew the foul. Other people will look at it and say an arm comes around your shoulder, you've got forward momentum. Here's your chance to give your take on the incident.
There's no take on it. Like I'm hitting full pace. The defender has a very awkward position of how he's probably going to tackle me, and again, everything happens so fast. It's incredibly hard for a referee to make these decisions. And again, as I said, it's so easy to look back in this in hindsight and look at replays and everything else. The referee has to call it within that second of how he sees it, and you can't really, I suppose, argue with that as much as we all do on the field at the time. You compare it to soccer and everything else, like the goal line technology, VAR, so much assistance, and referees don't have all of that, and they should really have a lot more tolerance. That people come down so critical on him, and it's very, very awkward for them. But look, as far as I can see, he called it. I stepped right. Your man had no other choice but to take me down. It's extremely hard for him to tackle me, especially when we're going at full pace against him. You see it all over the field when a forward is attacking like that. It's very, very hard to stop. And I was going down at that stage, and I had nothing else on my mind, only goals. So it's a hard one to call, but it's the referee's call within them couple of seconds, that split moment.
I think it's a good point, because I think for referees it's very difficult in real time. It's easy for us when we see it from two different camera angles and a high angle, and things are slowed down, and maybe we look at two different points of contact within the foul. It's easy enough for us to then draw conclusions based on that footage, but for a referee who sees that in real time, he sees two players collide and he sees you brought to ground, and he makes the decision to give the spot.
Yeah, exactly. It's split second, so it is. And a referee will always use his experience, and they've played the game, they know the game, they've refereed many games, and they have looked back over matches and matches, and they know what way things happen now. Again, they don't have that assistance, so they don't of going over to VAR or anything like that. So they call it, and in my view, they call it correctly. But look, the Thomas lads will always have a different view, and that's just the way it is. It's the way it always is. There's so many times, I suppose, that we feel that would have went against us, but there's no point in making excuses either. You'd have a lot of excuses. That's the case. Whatever happens, and we've been at the other side of that, obviously, throughout the years, with Richie Hogan and everything else, but you just have to accept these things and you move on, so you do. And it's the last thing Thomas wants to do is just look back over these things, because, as I said, in these split moments, it's a lot to take.
Colin, what was it like for James O'Connor coming in to replace Henry Shetland? He's coming into the middle of such a successful spell, and there was such continuity there, between what you had in Ballyhale for so many years.
You'd have to have huge respect for him. To come into that position where Henry hasn't lost a game 2 years, just his name, everything else. And then James has quite a reputation as well. He's lost very few finals over other teams. So, he's putting his reputation on the line as well. But look, he obviously done his research. He knew there was a good team there. He knew there was a few more years left in him. And, he's done a great job. You'd see a lot of similarities with Henry and James on a few things, and then you'd see James changing things up. And it's just interesting, and it's just that freshness. It's that freshness that Henry always talks about. And it's what James probably brought in. It's just that new freshness. And, you see his excitement. After the game, he was completely hoarse, so he was, And him just shouting at us the whole way through. But it obviously works. He keeps us on our toes. He keeps us in peak condition, and there's no excuses when it comes to the way we train and everything else. At the end of the day, it's what happens on the field, and we probably let ourselves down on Sunday, but that just gives us a lot more to work on and focus on, so it does.
Colin, nearly 2 years ago now, since your brother Michael went up the steps in the Hogan stand and lifted the Tommy Moore. We had our last season, but it will still be 3 successive seasons if you win the All-Ireland Championship. If you were to go that one further than any other club has done, go past your Athenrys, your Burrs, your Portumnas, who've done 2 in a row before, to win 3 in a row, how special would that be as a group, even if it means it's 3 over a 4-year period?
It's incredible, no matter what way you look at it, to get to the All-Ireland final and to win it. It's hugely incredible. I don't think we'd ever appreciate the 3s in a row and everything else until long after they're finished. But at the time, in that moment, We certainly can't wait for it. And look, it's something you can't think of because you know you think too much about it. You're not focused on the game itself.
The Dubs. Colin, I thought it was interesting watching Michael Darragh Macaulay's Lake Gale there a week ago. I'm not sure if you saw it, but he said that the 5 in a row was such a big thing for Dublin. It was such a monumental thing that they actually felt it was better to actually talk about it and not leave it to be an elephant in the room. Does that happen in a club like with Ballyhale? Have you referenced it at all? Does it come up?
Yeah, of course you would. James O'Connor would actually mention it. Like, you know, he mentioned the relevance of the importance of what we're doing, what's happening, how many games we've won in the trot. You know, it's important that we know what we've done and what's there to be achieved. And you know, if you lose it, you're right back to the start. It's a massive blow to the club, and it happens to every club, so it doesn't. It's how you recover from that. But James certainly brings it up on numerous occasions, and you know, as much as he tells us what we have done, he says what's in front of you is just so much better, and it's a massive achievement and something to look forward to. It's something that like we want to do and what we want to get to, and then you look around the club and you see what other teams have done within the club, and you know, you want to do one better than those.
Does that weight of history ever sit on you when you think back about the great teams that you've come from, and you look at your own relations who would have, you know, hurled for Ballyhale over the years, that strong tradition of the Fennelly name through there as well? Is that something that kind of boosts the club, or is that something that you ever consider when you start getting into a senior team in Ballyhale?
It's a huge boost because it gives yourself a target within your own club, not alone anything else. So it does. You know, I talk to uncles quite a bit, like even Uncle Sean Fennelly, like he's out of Ballyhale with 20 years, but yes, he still goes to every single match. You know, you think about what they have done. You know, they've all won up to 9 county finals, numerous All-Irelands as well, and you know, a few of us have just kind of gone past that stage, and you know, we want to keep on going. You see their support and just what the club has done, and you probably know it's a 50th year anniversary as well for the club, and just to look back at what the club has done over those 50 years, it's just a massive achievement, no matter what happens in 3 weeks' time. But our focus will be just on that game, and just it's a huge game as well against Ballygunner. They're obviously local. We know a good few of each other, so we do. You know, and again, Ballygunner, we all seen what they've done to Kilmallock down in Park Queeve, so that big open field, and sure Crow Park will suit them as well. So it will.
Yeah, I think the argument goes that Crow Park might suit both the teams well. Just on a final word on Ballygunner and on that local angle, people might be aware the Reeds and the Mahanys are related. There's not a massive distance between your two clubs either. This is going to feel like, you know, you've got a manager who's going to know all about them. Almost has a kind of a bit of a derby feel about it going into that game at Croker in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh, there definitely is. And we played already 2 years ago in the All-Ireland semi-final, and it was such a minor thing to think about, but I think it was a wet day, so it was, and I think the ball got caught in the muck up at our side, so it did, and let's say Ballygunner lads were pulling on it, just got stuck in the muck, and all of a shot, the ball went down our end of the field, and I think Owen Cody got a goal, and it's just that quick turnaround, and it's just the smallest of things that were between us that day, and you know, everybody's looking forward to it, and as I said, they're our near neighbours, and it's their first All-Ireland as well. It's a massive achievement for them to get there, but people are saying like they mightn't be as experienced, but as far as I'm concerned, they probably nearly have as much experience as us, because they're after winning the last 7 county finals down in Waterford, and you don't do that too easy, so you don't. No,
for sure. Colin, best of luck getting ready over the next 3 weeks for the All-Ireland final. Should be a cracker between yourselves and Ballygunner.
Okay, cheers lads, thanks very much.
Tommy, Ballygunner in the other semi-final didn't have quite the same dramatics that we saw in Semple Stadium, but again, like, talk about a whirlwind start to the match. Slaughtneil were set up with their sweeper, and they were set up quite defensively, and we were talking last week to Michael Verney about it. The idea was to condense the space in front of their goal, don't allow Ballygunner's runners to get in behind them, and then Ballygunner come in and blitz them for 1-3 without reply in the first couple of minutes of the game. They couldn't have wished for a worse start in Dublin at the weekend. Yeah, and you say it wasn't as dramatic. There was maybe the last 5 or 6 minutes you were there thinking, do you know, can Slaughtneil get a run on them here? They're pulling them in closer and closer, but Ballygunner were able to hold them off, and it probably was that start, Will, that was the major difference of the game. You know, it gave them such
such a basis for going forward. It was funny, we've referenced the game against Ballyhale a couple of times. Ballygunner could have had a start like that against Ballyhale. There was a couple of saves made by Barry Coote in the Ballyhale goal early on. Desi Hutchinson, actually, I don't think he even scored that day, but he had a couple of sights on goal early on. And, you know, it took Ballygunner a little while to take off that day, but I think we really saw them over the last couple of weeks start to get into their groove. And I think, like, what a tantalising prospect this is, this All-Ireland final in Croke Park. Colin referenced the semi-final there and, you know, being in the muck a couple of years ago. And it's going to be such a good game. Hutchinson as well, like, to start the show again the other night. 4 points I think he scored. Like the funny part was Slaughtneil kept a fairly decent handle on him for most of the game. Like, you're obviously going to give a star attacker a bit of extra attention, and it was Paul McNeil who went in on the man marking job. They also had the sweeper who was effectively in front of the space that Desi Hutchinson was looking to go in, and despite the fact that Slaughtneil were giving him all that attention, he still ends up with 4 points in play. Yeah I know, and it's like, are Ballyhale going to give them the same type of attention in that kind of a way? Or Ballyhale aren't going to play with a sweeper. Like, it's going to be a shootout here, forwards against forwards. So whoever comes out on top, like the man we were talking to there, Colin Fennelly, he had an unbelievable influence in the game on proceedings, but you know he was pretty quiet as well during that game. You know, the Ballyhale forwards were kept quite quiet by Thomas. Thomas did so well. Was it 28 minutes before Thomas gave away a scoreable free?
I thought the same. Thomas's full back line especially were brilliant all game. It was almost, they got hit obviously for the 2 goals late on, and that proves the difference between the sides, but there were so many good performers across the St. Thomas's team. Their midfield were incredible. The work rate and industry that we saw from them during the game really should have seen them through to the All-Ireland final. And like, what a change it makes from a couple of years ago. We were talking about it last week, where Ballyhale Shamrocks opened up when circumstances went their way at Croke Park. And that's even, like, if you think there's no Shane Cooney at the anchoring point of that defence for St. Thomas's either, and they did so well against that much vaunted Ballyhale forward line. But sometimes teams just find a way to win, and that was the same with Ballygunner against Lockmore Castleiney when we go back to the Munster semi-final. We've 2 teams going to this decider, Tommy, who've shown that they can win in different ways. Like, we saw Champagne hurling from Ballyhale Shamrocks at Croke Park when they played against Cluck Ballacalla, and I genuinely believe that the amount of experience that Ballyhale have in Croke Park in recent years is a huge advantage. But those wide open spaces, the quickest of ground that's going to be available on the second weekend of February, is going to be a huge advantage to Ballygunner when they go there too. It's absolutely mouthwatering. And after the games of the weekend, I find it very difficult to pick a winner, because as you mentioned, Ballygunner should have had that game done and dusted at the second motor break. I think it's 213 to 12 points, or maybe 213 to 11 at that point. And then the goal goes in from McGuigan, and you start to wonder, like, Brendan Rodgers is starting to be a nuisance again in the Slaughtneil forward line. The only thing that's probably going to annoy Slaughtneil coming out of it, Tommy, is that there's a Groundhog Day feel about this. Again, they're getting pats on the back from neutrals who are watching them, saying Slaughtneil have gone and had a right good go at one of the big teams in the country, whether that was Napersey, whether that was Ballyhale, and now against Ballygunner. But yet they've just not quite got to an All-Ireland final. Like, they're getting great experience reeling off these 4 recent Ulster titles. But as Chrissy McCaig said, and it goes back to a conversation we had with him here on this show back in December, it's so difficult to lift your level from playing Derry Club and Ulster Club to then play a one-off game against a Ballyhale or against a Ballygunner. Yeah, I know, and we spoke about it last week with Michael Verney as well. The challenge matches they were getting in, then along the Midlands, they had to travel a couple of hours to even get in a top quality challenge game. And it is unbelievable what Slaughtneil has done. But you're right, those pats in the back, they aren't going to be worth anything. And the Thomas lads, like, the devastation, it was crazy watching that game at the weekend, because the utter devastation, what a horrible way to lose for St. Thomas's. Like, how do you assess that game? How do you bounce back from that? And I'm sure they will bounce back. They're a brilliant team themselves. But for both Slaughtneil and St. Thomas's, in different ways, they were utterly crushing defeats at the weekend. But I think in a lot of ways, if we were to pick 2 finalists at the start of the provincial championships here, we would have been looking at Ballygunner, Ballyhale. We would have been saying they're the 2 teams we want to see up against each other. So it's a tantalising prospect on February 2nd. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Now, the Ballygunner boss, Darragh O'Sullivan, was speaking on TG Carr after the game at Parnell Park. He was speaking to Marcus O'Bukla, and they opened speaking about that flying start that the Waterford champions got in the game.
Listen, look, every team targets the start of the match, you know what I mean? And the reality of it is, look, the lads were very, very composed and got into those positions as well. And from a management perspective, that was very, very pleasing. They took the right option with the ball. I think Kevin passed it when people might have said he should have shot for the second goal, you know. And that's what you like to see, you know. I mean, these lads are all 100%, you know, as one really, and they don't care who scores the goals. It's like to see Billy get man of the match here, and that's great to see. Billy was a back earlier on in the year. He was a forward earlier on in the year. Philip got injured, we put him back in the backs. Philip came back, we put him back in the forwards, and I tell you how good a hurler he is, that he can be so flexible like that, you know, and thrill for him and thrill for all the lads.
Credit Slaughtneil, they came back at you, and I mean, they showed the heart and the hunger and determination that have made them Ulster champions, and for the last 5 years they came at you. But again, credit to your players, they stuck at it and they showed their character to withstand the purple patch that Slaughtneil had.
Yeah, look, they're a formidable outfit, like, and we knew that coming in here. We knew how good they were. We knew what they were going to bring to the table. They brought every bit of it, even more. You know, I said to the lads in the last water break, lads, these lads are not going to go away. Like, these lads are going to stick. They're going to be here right till the death. Like, I guarantee you that. And they were, and that's what makes them what they are. You know, they're a phenomenal club and a phenomenal team. And look, you know, if we weren't going to win today, I'd be delighted if they, you know, someone like them got to the final. And fair play to them. They're a phenomenal team, and I've no doubt they'll be back again. You know what I mean? They think big, in fairness to them, and they look, you know, to try and be better every single year. And fair play to them. You know, I'm full of admiration for them.
Billy O'Keefe proving his versatility for Ballygunner this year and proving crucial with the 2 goals he got in that game as they overcame Slaughtneil. So we'll be looking forward to that final in a few weeks' time, Ballygunner against Ballyhale. We'll know more about the destination of the American Cup by the end of this weekend, because on Saturday we've got 2 All-Ireland Club football semi-finals. Kilcoo of Down will be up against St Finbarrs of Cork, MW Hire O'Moore Park, 3pm. That game's on TG Carr on Saturday. TG Carr will also be broadcasting the second semi-final, which will pick Kilmacud Crokes of Dublin up against Porrick Pierces. Delighted to say we've got Fintan O'Toole now joining us from the 42.ie to look forward to these 2 games. And Fintan, the first thing I think is this is a real novel feel about it, with the exception of Kilcoo, who had their adventure back in the 2019-2020 season, having come out of Ulster. It's a long time since we've seen St Finbarrs play football in the All-Ireland Club Championship in a semi-final. You're going back to the mid-1980s. Kilmacud Crokes at a decade away from this level, and you've got Porrick Pierces coming out after their first Connacht title. There's a real kind of freshness about this last 4, even before we look at the matches themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the freshness stands out to me as well. I think there was always a good chance of this when you saw what was happening in various counties. You know, in the autumn, a lot of big names weren't managing to win their county titles. You know, sides like Curfin, Dr. Crokes, Slaughtneil, Guidor, you know, Bridget's and Roscommon, teams we've been used to seeing kind of, I suppose, dominate provincial championships and feature regularly in the All-Ireland series. So, like, the quartet we're left with, as you said, Kilcoo were the ones with the most recent experience, but that's obviously only the only semi-final in their history when they beat Ballyboden 2 years ago. Kilmacud, you got to go back to 2011, and they only have 2 guys left from that in Rory O'Carroll and Craig Diaz, and they lost to Crosswood Glen that time. Pierces have probably spent most of the club's history kind of looking at their neighbours, you know, Clonagale in the 80s and Bridget's more recently featuring in this stage, and now they're probably thinking this is their time to shine. And then from the Bears' point of view, it's a whole new thing for these players, but obviously they're probably grown up, you know. Like, talking to them after the Munster final, a couple of the players would have mentioned, you know, you can't walk into the club bar and you're seeing pictures of the great teams of the 70s and 80s. So there seems to be a big kind of determination on their end to, I guess, kind of carve their own niche and kind of, you know, create a piece of history for themselves and kind of step forward in that sense. And I think all 4 as well will kind of realise that a lot of those big teams, you know, it's quite possible that they're going to come back into the frame over the next couple of years. So if you're looking at it in terms of an All-Ireland kind of title race, you know, I think it's a big chance for the 4 that are left.
What a day it's going to be for one of Finbarr's best recent imports as well. You've got Conor Crickers coming up against effectively some of his former neighbours in Kilcoo, having gone down and been such a crucial player for St Finbarrs as well. What a day it's going to be for him on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, this is a really kind of a unique angle to it. You know, I definitely imagine when he made the move last year, he probably wouldn't have envisaged that he was going to be facing up to something like this, his neighbouring club. And I think Ryan McAvoy, the full back of Kilcoo, is kind of a second or third cousin to him as well. So obviously, given the parts of the pitch that they operate in, they're kind of marking each other as well, you know. But yeah, he's been a really interesting addition. It came about through Saoirse McCartan, who a camogie player from Down, who was playing with St Finbarrs, and Conor going down to Cork on a work placement from his college course. He didn't even actually play in St Finbarrs' first group game last year, but then came in the second one. And he's just made kind of small, I suppose, but kind of very valuable scoring contributions all season. I mean, he got 1-2 in the county semi-final. He got 2 goals in their Munster semi-final against Éire Guinness, and he's been a pretty kind of a valuable addition for them. But yeah, I mean, like, I remember chatting to him after the Munster semi-final, and there'd been a good crowd from his home club, and his family had come down all the way down to Porky Rin for that game before Christmas. But I definitely imagine when he if you think back to last year, he was part of the down squad for the Ulster Championship against Donegal. He probably wouldn't have thought 6-7 months later he was going to be going up against the down champions in an All-Ireland Club semi-final.
What's your assessment been of Finbar? You mentioned you were at the Munster final and Munster semi-final there, and Tommy and I were chatting about Finbar's kind of just getting over the line last time out against Austin Stacks, but probably worthy enough winners in that Munster final all the same.
Yeah, they definitely, I think, deserved it, but they made it pretty anxious for themselves and their supporters with the finale. I guess the big flaw in them so far, and they've kind of talked about this themselves, is they are prone to a bit of a fade out for a quarter in every game. Like the third quarter of the last day was when it really kind of went wrong for them. And, one of the big turning points was Austin Stacks missed a free just before the water break to draw a level. And the water break did help them to kind of, I suppose, steady themselves and kind of get their challenge going again. But they have a lot of very, very good facets to their game. They're very well organised. They're very, very good, strong defence. Billy Hennessy, who probably would be better known to people as a Cork hurler, would have been involved in the squad, reached the All-Ireland final last year. He's come back into their football setup as this championship has progressed, and he's made a really, really big difference. Sam Ryan was very, very good the last day, and the job he did in Kieran Donaghy. They have two kind of standout guys then, I think, in Ian Maguire in midfield and Stephen Sherlock up front. But then they just have a lot of very, very big options. And I think the more we get into this, we're going to see it this weekend now, the options off the bench are becoming more and more crucial. I'm sure we'll touch on it in a minute. You saw Kilmacud bringing on someone like Shane Horan in the Leinster semi-final. The Bears being able to bring on Michael Shields in the Munster final. We're really kind of reaching that stage now. You're going to need kind of 18 to 20 players to kind of get you over the line. And that's one of the big things that the Bears do have. They have a lot of very, very solid guys that come in. And like I said, that was probably just exemplified by that Munster final moment where Michael Shields makes the run forward, he breaks the cover, and it's another sub ended then he's on his shoulder, he gets through for the goal, and that really was the clinching score, albeit there was those couple of nervy minutes at the end when Stacks got an injury time goal.
Fintan, we were both talking to Paul O'Keefe after the game the last day, the Finbar's manager, and when I was chatting to him, he spoke about the attacking philosophy that he likes to play with, and I put it to him, if you play Kilcoo in the All-Ireland semi-finals, are you going to change your style at all? He said they won't. He said they'll play the way that they play. When you come up against a team like Kilcoo, and like we know a bit more about Kilcoo than we do about the Finbars, and Kilcoo will probably know that themselves, that they don't know a huge amount about the Bears. Should you be changing your style up against a team like Kilcoo?
I don't think you should, but I think you should be conscious of a couple of things. So, the Bears very much play very kind of, it's a bit of a traditional kind of front foot football. I go back to their county semi-final when they beat Castlehaven. It was pretty much kind of a shootout. It developed between, they left Brian Hurley 1-on-1 at one end, and then they had Stephen Sherlock at the other end. And they showed, say, maybe the spell just before half-time in the Munster final, what that kind of attacking style can do. That they hit three really, really good quality points in play from Brian Hayes, Sherlock and Killian Myers-Murray before half-time. So that shows, I guess, what they can do when they kind of move the ball fast. But the third quarter then, I think, is probably the one I imagine they'll be paying most attention to, and it's probably most relevant to the Kilcoo game this weekend. Just if you take the ball into contact against Kilcoo, you're going to get swallowed up, and then you're going to be in trouble with the counter-attacking they can do. And I thought that their just decision-making on the ball, they just made bad decisions in terms of maybe a player might get the ball on the wing and try to go on the narrow side down by the sideline, and then he would get turned over instead of kind of being a bit more patient and kind of recycling it. And they'll need to just have that kind of patience and that kind of composure to the last day. I don't think completely going a more kind of defensive oriented philosophy would be good for them at this stage. I mean, it's only 2 weeks since the Munster final, and it'd be really kind of ripping up the script for everything that got you there. And I think with Children's Ulster final, I don't think it really served Derry Donnelly well. I think you have to try and take on Kilcoo, but while being mindful that when they get those players back, and that if they turn you over, they are going to punish you. I mean, I think it was the third goal that they got against Derry Donnelly, Shailen Johnson's goal, I think it was. I think they had about 3 or 4 options on his shoulder if he didn't go for it himself. The volume of runners that they have, the guys that attack from deep, they're obviously incredibly well faced. They're probably the most experienced side performing at this level. So this is going to be a step up for St. Finbars, there's no doubt about that. And it'll just be interesting to see the lessons of that third quarter of the Munster final, whether they'll have learned from them.
Think about Kilcoo as well, as you mentioned about the Derry Donnelly game. They've had to come through various different styles, even coming through Ulster. And it seems at this stage Kilcoo are a team who don't actually mind if a team sits back defensively against them, because they were more than happy to just control possession against Derry Donnelly. I'm sure if their preference would be a team coming onto them, turn over the ball and go into the space, But actually, I was very impressed with how Kilcoo managed the ball against that game when Derry Connolly effectively had everyone inside their own half.
Yeah, definitely. I think that comes from the level of experience they've had. I mean, this is only their second All-Ireland semi-final. They've won, I think it's 10 counties and down since 2009. So they just have a lot of, they've seen a lot in terms of kind of playing against different counties. And it's obviously been kind of refined and kind of tailored the style of play since Mickey Moran and Conor Gilligan came in over the last couple of years. As you say, like they've won kind of in different ways. They cut loose at the end against Derry Connolly, having soaked up that early pressure. They got the goals, but they won a couple of really hard battles. The county final against Byrne and Down, and then obviously the Glen game before Christmas. I think that was the big one because good bit of hype about Glen for different reasons. Because Malik O'Rourke manager, Conor Glass on the pitch, beating a team like Scottstown, all this kind of underage talent that they showed in Derry kind of starting to flourish. That was a really hard battle. That was like a complete war of attrition, wasn't it, that day? And obviously Jerome Johnson just took the one goal chance that they got when they punched them. But obviously they were well in contention throughout for that, But like I saw someone saying, they wouldn't really mind if it's 2 points to 1, game. I mean, it was pretty low scoring for a lot of the Ulster final. But they do have the bit of football class as well. I mean, I thought Darragh Brannigan's, the running off the ball and the passing was one thing for the first goal, but it was the presence of mind to do the 2 dummies and to put it in the back of the net. And I mean, that I think it was 6 in again at half time, and I think then is when it was kind of a bit unassailable. But yeah, as you say, they have proven throughout this club campaign that they can, I suppose, whatever challenges pose at them or whatever type of game unfolds, they are capable of responding to it and winning whichever way it comes accordingly.
The other semi-final, Fintan, Pearses against Kilmacud Crokes, that's been moved to Kingspan Breffni Park in Cavan. I'm sure the Pearses boys will be delighted with that it's not in Croke Park. Just for the case that Kilmacud may be more used to playing at Croke Park, I don't know, maybe not. But when we talk about styles here, Pearses have quite a defined style as well. They're quite patient on the ball, great runners. A lot of their scores come from deep. Are we going to see, a similar enough game to the county final that Kilmacud came through against St. Jude's, or what are you expecting this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I suppose for the last couple of years when we look at Pearses, the foundation has been the Daly brothers, the 3 older ones, I guess, Conor, Ronan and Niall, but what they kind of offer in midfield and defence, and David Murray, guys with so much experience. But I think it was interesting, like the performance of Paul Carey in the Connacht final, showed that I suppose it'll only take you so far in terms of kind of that defensive organisation. And you look at it like a couple of years ago, they got to their first Connacht final against Kerfin kind of at the peak of their powers at the time. They put up a fair old test of them now, in fairness, but they only scored 7 points, which obviously wasn't going to be enough to get you over the line. Their scoring rate then improved to 113 against Knockmore. Carey gets 8 points, 5 from play. Like Pat Flanagan afterwards was saying that he's always had this ability, Carey. It's just kind of, he felt it was just a bit of a confidence issue with him. Imagine he's a guy Anthony Cunningham's going to be taking a look at now. He's obviously played underage for Roscommon. He's going to come into the equation there. So it is a sign that they have kind of added that element to it. And you have Hubert Darcy as well. I mean, I know he kind of went in goal for that 10-minute spell against Knockmore and kind of adapting to that challenge, but he has been very, very effective as well. So I think they probably added a little bit more up front in their sense. From Kilmacud's point of view, I suppose they've showed the way that they can cope, say the Jude's game in the county final and say Port Harling with the Leinster semi-final, when something is thrown at them in the first half, that they're able to kind of think their way through their game and kind of plot their way back into contention. The big one then, the Leinster final, is basically, I think they kind of showed 2 big things. That one, they can win without Paul Mannion, who obviously is going to be a huge, huge loss, and maybe his impact will be more felt as we kind of get into the All-Ireland series. But also, they put them on unlock the thing, I think, to bed. I mean, it was probably one of the greatest kind of romantic club stories a lot of people kind of latched onto a couple of years ago, but they were on the flip side of it then, like the disappointment of that. And in fairness, the team has changed a bit since then. It's a lot of very good young players coming into it now, like Tom Fox, Callum Pearson, Darren Mullen. It's like they got 10 points between them the last day. But I think it was a pretty impressive sign that they kept Naas scoreless in the Leinster final, and then also have come back to that earlier, the strength and depth that they have. I mean, Shane Horan's played senior football for Offaly. Cian O'Connor, to my mind, like he's been a brilliant player in the Dublin Championship the last couple of years. He's come on and kicked a couple of big goals for Kilmacud in this year's championship. But bringing in guys like that off the bench, that's a real kind of sign of their strength and depth.
Yeah, should be two great semi-finals. Those two semis, Kilcoo against St Finbarrs is at O'Moore Park at 3 p.m. on Saturday, and then we've got Kilmacud Crokes against Porrick Pierces at Breffni Park from 5 p.m. Fintan, thanks a million for joining us on the show.
No problem, lads.
Cheers,
Tommy, before we wrap up, I just want to let the viewers and listeners know about the confirmed games which are coming up over the next while in the All-Ireland series as well, because confirmed by the GA yesterday. So Saturday, February the 5th is going to be the time for the junior and intermediate hurling finals at Croke Park. That'll be Ballygiblin of Cork up against Mooncoin of Kilkenny. In the junior hurling, Kilmoyley of Kerry go up against Naas of Kildare in intermediate hurling. Kind of strange that Cork and Kilkenny have been so dominant in the junior, but the intermediate is a real kind of new feel about it, with the Kerry and Kildare champions up against each other, and for some of those Naas players back to Croke Park for the first time since losing out to Kilmacud Crokes in the football. Then on the 6th of January, which is the Sunday, we're going to have the junior football final. These semi-finals have to be decided this weekend, so you'll have the intermediate and junior finals at 1:30 and 3:30, and we'll know the teams in the final after this weekend. And then Saturday, February the 12th, it's going to be All-Ireland final day. 3 p.m. start for Ballygunner of Waterford against Ballyhale of Kilkenny in the senior hurling final. We're just on with the football semi-finals. The football final will have a 5 p.m. throw-in, so no rest for the wicked. Still plenty of games to come round over the next 3 weeks or so, and then we'll have the All-Ireland Camogie finals coming around in no time as well. Some of the teams we talked about recently, like Clonmorris, straight back into a Munster final this weekend, just a couple of weeks after losing out in an All-Ireland final. It's absolutely crazy. I was talking to Mairead Daly of St Rhinus yesterday as well.
I saw that.
They had a 1 week break effectively before they were back.
And they're back talking about All-Ireland again, are they?
No, you never give up on trying to win two in a few weeks. I think, in fairness, if you're a team, Tommy, who's going well, and this goes for probably all the camogie teams who are running over from that much extended 2020 season, if you've been peaking and your fitness has been at a high level coming into this month, why wouldn't you just keep going around the clock and try and win 2 All-Irelands in a month and a half?
100% will. And just on what you're saying there about you're listening at the junior and intermediate All-Ireland finals, can I just say that, Sean Kelly, when he was GA president, he had a couple of massive decisions and he was involved in a couple of things, like opening up Croke Park. His handprints are in a way over the green proposal that's been, we're going to see whether that's going to have an impact and that's going to make it through Congress next month. I'm definitely forgetting a few other things that Sean Kelly was involved in, but Sean Kelly was definitely one of the driving forces in the junior and intermediate All-Ireland club finals becoming a factor, and the provincial championships. And I think it's actually illustrated the power and the benefits of tiered competitions, and it's the good version of it. In hurling, there's surely benefits in the All-Ireland Championship of a tier, but there's also some negatives. We've seen the positives in the Ladies Football Championship. We're looking at restructuring the Gaelic Football Championship at the minute at intercounty level, and I think when you look at how beneficial it could be for clubs and how valuable those All-Ireland medals are, I think it just shows they're only 20 years old. I'm forgetting about Sean Kelly's role in saving GA in the capital. That was the other one I was forgetting. So the Dubs can obviously thank Sean Kelly for that as well. But I'm only joking with that one. But it is one from the legacy of Sean Kelly's GA presidency. That is a massive part of it, the junior and intermediate All-Ireland finals. I'd
agree. And look, I think some we'll chat about next week. There's some really romantic stories going into this weekend.
Yes.
I was thinking of Clonbelogue, a club that I know reasonably well. They've got, I think, about 300 people live in the village, and about 40 of the eligible men who can play are involved in some way, either playing or they're part of the management teams or whatever else. So these are kind of the crazy stories you hear when you dip into the lower grade tier competitions. Also give mention as well, the All-Ireland Ladies Club football final is on this weekend. Burr is going to host that senior final 1 p.m. on Saturday. Also on TG Carr, it's a huge day for them of games on Saturday, and then you've got the National Football League back this weekend too. But Kilkerran and Clonburney of Galway up against Mourneabbey, two teams who have been to All-Ireland finals in recent years, and that should be a cracker at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Final note, Tommy, you may as well get your final plug of the week in. You've got a new co-host for the football pod.
Well, I didn't think you were going to ask me. Thanks very much.
I knew I'd stick it in somewhere.
The football pod is back. Questions were being asked. How can you replace somebody of the calibre of Andy Moran? And heads were put together, and I think it's safe to say that a bit of time and a bit of luck came. James O'Donoghue has retired from intercounty football. We spoke about it this week, and he has now joined us as co-host on the football pod. So tune in every Tuesday on the OTB Sports app, and you will get James O'Donoghue and Paddy Andrews breaking down the Gaelic football season as the year goes on. O'Donoghue is going to be worth listening to this year, Will. I don't know if you heard any of it already. Once we chat about the retirement, I think it's quite heavy for a few minutes. We get into talking about some of the football this week. Great value on Kildare and what Paul Gavin's going to bring. Controversial on Tyrone. I'm not going to say much more. worth having a look at that. So I think James is going to bring a lot of value this year for the Football Pod listeners.
And if you're not listening in audio form, have a look at the YouTube, because you will be incredibly jealous of the tan, which is on O'Donoghue, come into it as well. That's a man who has holidayed well over the Christmas period when he knew he wasn't going back playing.
It wasn't the beds like Paddy Andrews. It wasn't the beds. He was actually in the Cayman Islands. So
you need his agent to make sure you can go on these trips and also get gigs like the Football Pod. Tommy, thanks a million as always, and we will be back next Wednesday at 10:30 to look back at those football semi-finals.
The Club Championship Show on OTB Sports in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. #the toughest.